All right, Shalom, giving all praises, honor, and glory to our power, Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shah, Bahashem Rachak, Wadash, double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the whole free elect of the tabernacles of David, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, wherever you may be, Shalom, Yeshua, Shalom. Right, so I'm going to bring up this video here. This guy named David. Where you see the title is always the same: equipping the saints for the Hebrew Israelites. As we mentioned before, the saints are the Hebrew Israelites, which are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. So, that's misleading in itself. But it's because of these churches think that God loves everybody and everybody's going to get salvation and so on and so forth and all this equality stuff. All right, none of that is in the Bible. So, but the title of this one here, it says, I need to get my glasses. There we go. I need to get my glasses, man.
Morning.
Morning, how you doing? In 1 second, clean them off. All right, make sure we take it. All right, yeah. All right, so it says, 430 years. Then it has here Genesis 15 and Ezekiel 4. So we'll play this video. As a matter of fact, let me just speed it up just a tad bit. Probably no more than that. But let's play the video.
There are two places in Scripture that reference 430 years, and Hebrew Israelites attempt to use these texts to say that they refer to slavery within the Americas. But is this historical?
Let me pause it right there, because that's a lot. Now, if there is, camp somewhere teaching that the years mentioned by Abraham are referring to America, and then that's going off. They're teaching that and they're going off. Okay. But it seems like he's like, I can't say for sure, but it seems like he's picking and choosing which, I guess you could say, which Israelite camps that he watches for what they teach. And then he'll try to make videos based on them having, the wrong doctrine, or, like making a mistake, whatever, however the case may be. And so what he's doing here is basically lying, because, he's using it in a general aspect and saying that, because what he's basically saying is the 430 years is what the Israelites teach, referring to America. All right, and that's false. And what he's going to do is take what we do teach, which is the proper thing, and try to use that and say that, hey, I'm right, and that they were teaching wrong. So he's basically being, crafty. He's being sneaky here, and just, kind of using his words in a crafty like way. But yeah, if there's a camp out there that is teaching the 430 years prophesied by Abraham, is dealing with America, that's going off. All right. But we don't teach that. So
Is this biblical? The answer is no. The first account occurs in Genesis chapter 15 with a promise to Abraham. In verse 13, we find, God said to Abram, know for certain that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, where they will be enslaved and oppressed 400 years.
And that's some history that we've gone into before. I think I have a page. Let me see. Yeah, here's one. Let me go over here, because I think he's reading from that other version. I think Apostle Tahar brought that out, that ESV or something like that. What are we looking for? Genesis 15. Okay. Yeah. We're gonna find down here. I think he started at verse 13. Yep, right here, 13. So it says Genesis 15:13, and he said unto Abram, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. Now, when you're dealing with this, it tells us, it actually gives us the ammunition to find out exactly who this, which it's not a mystery to us, but I'm just making a point to figuring out who this really is. Because it says, he said to Abraham, know with surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs. Now, we know Abraham had multiple sons, all right? But when you go into, I want to say it's in Genesis 17, it makes a separation there, all right? It tells you that the covenant that's going to be made is with Isaac. And from Isaac, it goes to Jacob, and there's pretty much nothing else to talk about from there, Okay, so that's one thing. And then it says that it shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them being the Egyptians, even though it doesn't say it here. All right, but it says, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. Because when you go to uh, Exodus, you just go to chapter 1, because even at the end of Genesis, it's following the accounts of Joseph, the famine, and how he brought his family into the land and so on and so forth. They dwelled in Goshen and all these different things. And then, it transitioned because Joseph passed away, transitioned from following Joseph's story to following Moses' story, which overall still deals with all the Israelites, but it specifically follows Moses' story, right? And so where you go over here to Exodus, it shows us exactly who this was referring to, and it's the Israelites. It says, now these are the names of the children of Israel which came into Egypt. Every man in his household came with Jacob. All right, goes on to list all the names. And this is all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls, for Joseph was in Egypt already. And we know that Jacob was an Israelite. Okay, Joseph is one of his sons. Okay, he was I want to say he was the 11th son, because Benjamin was the 12th. He was the last one. All right. It says, and Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. All right, and the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly and multiplied and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it come to pass that when they falleth out of any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens, and they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew, and they were grieved because of the children of Israel. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel serve with rigor. See, the Egyptians made the children of Israel serve with rigor. And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar and in brick and in all manner of service in the field. All their service and wherein they made them serve was with rigor. All right. And that was that particular point, which we already clarified it up above, because it clearly mentioned the children of Israel. But in verse 13, it says, and the Egyptians made the children of Israel serve with rigor. And so when we go back to Genesis 15, all right, and 14, it says, also that nation whom they shall serve, which we just clarified are the Egyptians, will I judge afterward, shall they come out with great substance. And that's more to the history of Exodus, when we came out of Egypt, okay, when we left out with great substance, every man borrowed from his neighbor, so on and so forth. And as a matter of fact, we go back up to that verse above. It says, Abram's know of a surety that thy seed, which we know is talking about the children of Israel, shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, which is Egypt. All right, Mitzrayim, Matazarim, and shall serve them, excuse me, which are the Egyptians, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And we just read it. The children of Israel would serve the Egyptians and serve with rigor. See? Let's go back and see what else he's going to read here. Play that. Okay.
Now, some may try to dispute that this refers to Egypt, but the Bible itself affirms that this refers to Egypt. And we see this in Acts chapter 7.
You see what I mean there? He's talking about some may dispute. Well, who's disputing? Because anybody that has the proper doctrine will tell you that what we just read in Genesis, the 15th chapter, with the, Abram, was referring to Egypt, but it was specifically referring to the children of Israel, which is something he's not making that connection there. He just want to speak on, what it's talking about, but not getting into the, the tidbits, all right? Which is the connection between the children of Israel serving under the Egyptians with rigor, all right? But that's what I said before. He's trying to take what we actually teach and use, crafty words to switch it around and say they're teaching this and not this, but this is the right way, all right?
Here Stephen is speaking, and he says in verse 6, but God spoke to this effect, that his descendants would be aliens in a foreign land, and that they would be enslaved and mistreated for 400 years. And whatever nation to which they will be in bondage, I myself will judge, said God, and after that they will come out and serve me in this place.
And that's what happened under Moses. Okay, what happened? It says, let my people go, that they may serve me. And then we were in the wilderness. We ended up at Mount Sinai, and so on and so forth. So all their history is in the Bible. So him doing all this jumping around is just him trying to, make himself seem more right, when actually the truth didn't come from him. Okay, it came from the actual Israelites that taught the truth. Okay, where we learned the truth from. All right. So you see what I mean with his sneakiness or whatever.
So, was this fulfilled? Well, as we keep reading, we find out yes. Verse 17, but as the time of the promise was approaching, which God had assured to Abraham, the people increased and multiplied in Egypt. Stephen applies the fulfillment of this to the events in Egypt and the event.
And he just read Acts 7 and 17. And I'm going to go there to see if it'll precept us back to the Old Testament. Let's see if we can read that. All right, so verse 15, Acts 7:15. So Jacob went down into Egypt and died, and he and our fathers, and were carried over into Shechem and laid in the sepulchre that Abraham brought for a sum of money of the sons of Emor, the father of Shechem. But when the time of the promise drew nigh, which God had sworn to Abraham, the people grew and multiplied in Egypt, till another king arose which knew not Joseph, and so on and so forth. And it goes on, what a history. I believe this was the verse. Let me see if cross-reference us back. I see Genesis 15. We just read that, but it goes back to what we just read, though. That particular, see, same thing we just read there. I was hoping it would take us into Exodus, possibly. Okay, but you get the point there. Okay, so he's just doing a lot of pointless jumping around.
Eventual exodus that occurred, and so biblically,
and see, it's okay if these anti-Christians do it, but if an Israelite does it, they call it they call it Hebrew hopscotch or whatever.
This is the fulfillment, and so there's no question as to what this refers to. The next text we'll consider is in Ezekiel chapter 4, and the interpretation here is a little bit more complicated because we are not given the specific fulfillment as we are in the case of Acts chapter 7. But when we break down the text and look at it carefully, the meaning is clear.
Now, I don't know why he's bringing up Ezekiel, because Ezekiel prophesied about the Babylonians coming. All right.
Ezekiel 4:4, we read God speaking to Ezekiel, as for you, lie down on your left side and lay the iniquity of the house of Israel on it. You shall bear their iniquity for the number of days that you lie on it. For I have assigned you a number of days corresponding to the years of their iniquity, 390 days. Thus you shall bear the iniquity of the house of Israel. When you have completed these, you shall lie down a second time, but on your right side, and bear the iniquity of the house of Judah. I have assigned it for you for 40 days, a day for each year.
And we know those were prophetic years, all right? 40 years and so on and so forth. But let me see what he's talking about.
So to understand this passage, we have to look at the context and understand what is transpiring first. Once we understand that, we're going to look into determine what it means when it references their iniquity and the iniquity that Ezekiel would bear. Finally, we'll use all of this information to decipher what it means and what it refers to when it speaks of the 390 years and the 40 years. Doing that, we will come to see then that this has nothing to do with the slavery that would later occur in the Americas. It has everything to do with events that transpired thousands of years ago.
You see, that's what I mentioned before. Anybody teaching that what in Genesis chapter 15 is written refers to slavery in America is going off. But there are scriptures, we'll get it later, all right, that does refer to that. Okay, let me play this first.
The timeline of Ezekiel's prophecy begins with him alive at the beginning of the 6th century BC. This is shortly before the destruction of Jerusalem by Babylon. Ezekiel is prophesying about that pending destruction. We start in verse 1, and it says, Now you, son of man, get yourself a brick, place it before you, and inscribe a city on it, Jerusalem. Then lay siege against it, build a siege wall, raise up a ramp, pitch camps, and place battering rams against it all around. And he goes on from there, ultimately culminating in, This is a sign to the house of Israel. In what follows, God tells Ezekiel what to eat and how to prepare it, ultimately culminating in verse 13 when it says, "Then the Lord said, Thus will the sons of Israel eat their bread unclean among the nations where I will banish them." Then in verses 16 and 17, "Moreover, he said to me, Son of man, behold, I am going to break the staff of bread in Jerusalem, and they will eat bread by weight and with anxiety, drink water by measure and in horror, because the bread and water will be scarce, and they will be appalled with one another and waste away in their iniquity." If we continue into chapter 5, this theme continues of prophecy against Jerusalem for the sins that have been committed, warning of the coming destruction that is going to take place. So contextually, we know that this is about the destruction of Jerusalem that was taking place in really a matter of years from the time.
Yeah, we know that, but that's why I'm wondering why he decided to jump from the prophecy in Genesis to this right here. Okay, and he's talking about he's going to tie it all in together to show you that it's not talking about America, but that's not what we teach. Okay.
Of Ezekiel. This would occur shortly thereafter in Ezekiel.
And that's also why I said I believe he's picking and choosing, which you see this is 8 months ago, but which really ain't that far back. But I believe he's picking and choosing which Israelites to watch to try and find holes in their doctrine and then make a video based off of that. All right, because he doesn't make videos based off the correct doctrine. All right, he makes videos based off a doctrine that you don't hear the apostles teach, except for when you're dealing with something like this. Now he's trying to take the proper understanding and flip it around and say that we're not teaching the right thing, but this is what it really, is just being crafty and sneaky.
Lifetime. Now, in order to determine the number of years involved and what it refers to, we need to understand what their iniquity refers to. And this gets a little bit complicated. The Hebrew word avon is translated as iniquity, but it can refer to the iniquity itself, that is the sin.
So let's pull it up. I'm going to type in iniquity. There it is right there. I guess we'll just grab this one here. H5771, iniquity. And there it is. Awan. Okay. Perversity, depravity, iniquity, guilt, or punishment of iniquity. All right. And then the rest of them pretty much says the same thing. Consequence of or punishment for iniquity. Okay. So let's go back.
Or the punishment. And so we have to determine whether or not the term is used for the sin or the punishment. Now, we do have a little bit of help, because when it comes to Ezekiel bearing their iniquity, it is paired with the term nasa. And nasa with avon always refers to bearing the punishment. In fact, this combination occurs 8 times.
So what was that? Did he read was it Ezekiel 4:4 that he read? Let me see if I can pull it up. Left side, there's iniquity. It's the same word. We just pull it up just for sake of this. See, it's the same thing there, all right? And then the word, all right, upon it thou shalt bear, H5375, their iniquity. And there's nasha. It says to lift, bear up, carry, take, support, sustain, endure, carry off. All right, to be born, be carried. Bear continuously. It was exactly what Ezekiel did. All right, because he told him do it on one side, then they flip over and do it on the opposite side. And of course, this wasn't like a 24-hour him just lying down 24 hours for 40 days. No, he got up, he had to do things. He was talking about when he slept. Okay, that's what you were to do. Okay. To cause one to bear iniquity, to cause to bring, have brought. All right, so let's go back over here. What is this on the screen? Okay.
In the book of Ezekiel, and each time refers to that exact thing. Looking further, avon appears 24 times in the book of Ezekiel, where it definitely means the sin. And in these statistics, I'm not counting chapter 4, because that is the text in dispute.
But we understand what is iniquity? As sin on top of sin on top of sin. against the Lord, to be more specific, because the only ones that could sin against the Lord are the Israelites. Why is that? Because the Israelites were the only ones given the laws, statutes, and commandments. See? Which is why he's coming back to judge the house of Israel first. Judgment shall begin at the house of Israel. All right?
Additionally, there are 4 instances of Avon where it is not paired with Nasa, but does refer to the punishment, and that is clear from the context. Finally, there is one somewhat ambiguous text, chapter 18, verse 30. Here, Brown, Driver, and Briggs' lexicon suggests that it refers to the sin itself, whereas the Septuagint renders it as the punishment. Ultimately, what we do find is that the vast majority of the time, it refers to the sin itself. Rarely it refers to the punishment itself if it's not paired with Nasa. In other words, if it doesn't say, bear the iniquity. The clearest distinction is seen in Ezekiel chapter 18, whereas in verses 17 and 18, Avon is used alone and refers to the sin. But in verses 19 and 20, it is paired with Nasa and refers to the punishment. Given this, it is highly likely that what we're seeing in Ezekiel chapter 4 is that Ezekiel is bearing the punishment for each of the years of Israel and Judah's sin. Israel is accounted for 390 years of sin, and so Ezekiel bears 1 day of laying on his side for every year of their sin to bear the punishment for.
Yeah, we know that. We already explained that. So once again, what's the point of him bringing up the 400 plus years and these years, and then saying he's going to use both of these to tie them together? Show it's not talking about America, which we don't teach that. But, let's
each of those years, and then 40 days corresponding to 40 years for Judah. The destruction that is then coming is in punishment for that sin, and his bearing each of these days is a sign as part of the prophecy that this destruction is coming. It is not saying that.
And all you have to do is read the prophets that prophesied about, Babylon, like Jeremiah, Isaiah, which was a little bit before that. But, there were different prophets that prophesied about these nations coming, and they'll tell you pretty much what the Israelites need to repent for, okay, and pretty much prepare yourself, because you're not turning back to the Lord. The Lord is going to bring these nations against you, but they continue to, be rebellious or whatever the case may be.
There is going to be a 390-year period and a 40-year period of coming destruction and judgment that is laid upon them for their iniquity, but it refers to the times of the iniquities themselves that are being punished for. This is confirmed in that Brown, Driver, and Briggs distinguishes how iniquity is used from bearing the iniquity to the iniquity itself. The Septuagint also renders it as edikaios, which refers to unrighteousness, not the punishment. Now, how is this applying to the northern kingdom, given that Assyria had exiled the northern kingdom? Well, we find the answer in 2 Chronicles. In 15:9, we read, "And he gathered all Judah and Benjamin, and those from Ephraim, Manasseh, and Simeon who resided with them, for many defected to him from Israel." And under Hezekiah's reign in chapter 30, verse 6, the couriers went throughout Israel and Judah with the letters from the hand of the king and his princes, even according to the command of the king, saying, "Sons of Israel, return to the Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, that he may return to those of you who escaped and are left from the hand of the kings of Assyria." There were still those of the northern kingdom in the southern kingdom, and not in small number, and they still had punishment to bear. So when we read verse 5 of Ezekiel 4 in light of this in the 2020 New American Standard Bible, the meaning's clear. "For I have assigned you a number of days corresponding to the years of their wrongdoing, 390 days, so you shall bear the wrongdoing of the house of Israel." There's no future prophecy related to thousands of years in the future. This took place in 587 with the destruction of Jerusalem.
Yeah, we know that. And now to finalize the point, you see how he just basically, use the scriptures for manipulation, because notice one thing that he left out here. And he knows this. He left this out though. What we do teach, okay, which is clearly in the scriptures here. Deuteronomy 28. It's really at the point of 68, but we can start at 64. It says, "And the Lord Yahweh shall scatter, all right, thee among all people from the one end of the earth even to the other." And we know this is prophesied about the Israelites, because these are the curses, the judgments, written, for punishment, all right? If because we entered to the blood covenant, said that all the things we would do, all right, and the Lord put forth also curses that He will punish us by if we broke the covenant, and we broke the covenant, which is why we're now currently under the curses, right? So these are the curses written to the Israelites, and it says, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone, which you got Israelites all over the earth, mainly, Jesus the Christ, Buddha, and then you have other people that depending on where they live, they might worship some other thing, or maybe believe doing witchcraft, or maybe believe in nothing at all, or whatever the case may be. All right, but it says, and among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest, but the Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart, and failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shalt have none assurance of thy life. And yeah, as we just talked about, this happened when the Babylonians came. It also happened in 70 AD when the Romans came. But it also happened when those particular slave trades started up. All right, it was the same thing. It says, in the morning thou shalt say, would God it were even, and at even thou shalt say, would God it were morning. For the fear of thine heart wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. It says, and the Lord Yahweh shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. You see? By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. All right? Basically where you came from, okay? Which, once again, going back to 70 AD, from the Romans out of Jerusalem into, western interiors of Africa, where you actually had Israelites living already. All right. When you go back to Jeremiah was one of those ones that ended up leaving and going into I forget what city it was, but basically into Africa though. So we know we had Israelite, settlements or colonies, however you want to put it, in Africa. So this wasn't far fetched, because it was right on point, and the Lord prophesied about it. All right, Matthew 24, you can read it. I believe the same thing is in Luke 21. But out of Jerusalem, 70 AD, fleeing into Africa, then eventually that transatlantic slave, came, from there. All right. You also had ones that came, from, northern, like Spain area, whatever. Then you had the Northern Kingdom, who were already over here, South Central and Northern America, dealing with the same Edomites, these conquistadors. See. So, and so it says, bring you to Egypt again with ships, and we know America is spiritual Sodom and Egypt. It tells you that in Revelation. I guess we'll read it, 11. Okay, and 8, it says, and their dead bodies shall lie in the street of that great city. We know that's talking about Babylon the Great, which is America, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, because Egypt was the house of bondage, great captivity for us. And you know what sodomy is, all right? And this is all these things you can find here in America, and much, much more. Is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. See? So we know it was talking about America. And there's another one in I think it's 20. Is it 23? It's 22 or 23. Okay, it might be in 22. Okay. Here we go. Isaiah 22:17. Behold, the Lord will carry thee away with a mighty captivity, and will surely cover thee. He will surely violently turn and toss thee like a ball into a large country. And that was on the slave ships, man. It says, there shalt thou die, and there the chariots of thy glory shall be the shame of thy Lord's house. And those are talking about, case in point, the chariot, or so-called spaceships, to say it another way so you can get the point. All right. That's going into the slave trades there, man. So he left out this Deuteronomy 28:68, but he tried to use, he actually tried to use proper breakdowns, which he still squeezed them together, which is wrong. But he tried to use proper breakdowns and understanding of the scriptures to bring it together and talking about, America, whatever. And we don't teach that. And like I said, if there's a camp that is teaching that, those prophetic years dealing with Abraham, all right, in Genesis 15 is talking about America, then that's going off, because that was talking about Egypt back then. That already came and went, okay? So it says, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. And when it talks about buy, it's not talking about actually buying with money or whatever. It's talking about redeeming you, okay? And because our Redeemer is going to be Yahweh Shah. The Lord is going to send back Yahweh Shah, to issue salvation to the elect, right? To get, acquire, create, buy, possess, obtain. Look, there we go, right there, of God originating, creating, redeeming His people. You see, redeeming His people. All right, so I mean that's pretty much it right there. He just tried to use the truth to make a lie and say the Israelites are teaching falsely or whatever the case may be. But it was easy to see through that. So Lord will that you would edify. All praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rachak Kodash. Once again, double honor to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the whole full elect of the tabernacles of David, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, wherever you may be, Shalom, Yahshua, Shalom.